arm talent is it's crazy. I mean, it's very, very impressive. He's a very impressive player. I got to watch him a little bit when he was at USC. Didn't get a chance to watch him as much this past year. I've started to dive into him, but I wouldn't say that that's a full evaluation quite yet. I don't think that would be fair. I think the biggest thing is just the talent of the kid, the ability to use his legs. He is a tough kid. You see it on tape. Obviously the communication and all that stuff. But his second act, his ability to evade the pocket, his ability to create is a special thing, and it's something that I got to see with Bo in Denver last year. That ability to evade and put pressure on the defense and kind of be the eraser of game planning mistakes. I think that's really exciting about him.
What a wild time in the sports world right now. As the NBA world collectively loses their minds over the Luka Doncic trade and rumors of the true reason for the trade are starting to swirl, the Bears, on the other hand, are noticeably rock solid and kind of feeling like an organization with a plan and adding the right people to make that plan happen. I mean, the worst thing to come out of this week was who the F is Press Taylor? So, as the Bears continue to nuts and bolts this whole leadership structure and add new faces almost daily, we wanted to dive into one of these new faces. The OC, Declan Doyle. I realize we're diving right into Declan Doyle's face, man.
Let's not do that.
And a couple other tidbits that have happened since the last time we all hung out. So, what did we learn about the Bears this week?
Well, that was an interesting opener.
When you write
You didn't run that by me. You didn't usually send it to me ahead of time. This time you didn't.
I wanted a surprise, dude.
Well,
I surprised myself and
surprise
Declan.
Declan Doyle's face. We're coming right into your face.
Oh, shit.
All right, so what did we learn about the Bears? All right, I think one of the things we learned is what Kevin Warren actually does. That's actually been a legitimate question for most of the season because he was brought in to do a lot of the business stuff, get the stadium deal done was his big thing, and here we are, the stadium nobody knows where it's going to be. They bought property in Arlington Heights. Now they're not sure if they want to use it. I don't know what they're going to do with property in Arlington Heights now if they decide to stay in the lakefront. Nobody really knows what's going on. So you're like, what is this guy doing? But I think what he's doing is he's having a really big impression on George and the front office. You can see it in the way that Ben came aboard. You can see it on, how they're actually trying to do things correctly, doing things professionally. We talked about them actually rolling out the red carpet for Ben Johnson. His numbers came out, $13 million a year. They never paid that much for a coach. They paid $5 million a year for Flus. And now 13 for an unproven coach. That's not usually how George does things. And, we found out today that they lined up Poles' contract with Ben's. So Poles, I guess, was through 2026. So they've extended him 3 years. So that equates that 5 year that Ben Johnson also got. So they're on the same timeline, which is something I'm not sure that they did previously. So they're really trying to do this correctly. You can see that they're going younger, right? Declan Doyle, who we talked about, him and his face are very young. And Ben Johnson, obviously very young. Dennis Allen is probably the elder statesman at 52. Actually, with someone like Rauscher and some of those guys they just hired Dan Rauscher's offensive line coach. He's been around the block. So they're doing a mix of youth and experience, right?
Yeah.
Because they also got Eric Bieniemy recently to do the running backs coach, and wow, that guy was running backs coach, then OC, and he's been talking head coaching candidacy, and now he's back at running backs coach. I think he's overqualified for the position that the Bears got him in, but it tells me that Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, they listen to the players, right? We talked about the whole time last year when they were going on their podcast and when the locker room was boiling over. It's we need somebody to coach us hard. We need somebody to hold us accountable. And now they've gotten like, Dennis Allen, this Rauscher guy, Eric Bieniemy, these like no nonsense coaches that are going to do kind of just that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be good. I think those guys will get coached hard. Even Ben Johnson is like a no nonsense guy.
Sounds like Randall L's got that like vibe too.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I didn't even mention Randall L. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got that vibe. You saw him scolding Jameson Williams on the sideline. Like these guys are like, yeah, we're not going to stand for some of this clowning and like Tyreek Stevenson yucking it up. Like I don't think that stuff's going to fly next year. So at the very least, they've kind of tried to address that. Now, whether it actually works on the field, we know that it hasn't for the Bears really ever, but we're always optimistic. And so far it looks pretty good. And Declan Doyle, yeah, like you said, who is this guy? Where did he come from? Everybody was like, David Shaw's going to come. That's going to be great. And then they're like, Declan Doyle? Who is this kid? 28 years old?
Yeah.
And I think that shows to me like Ben Johnson he's really trying to mold somebody to be like him. Because I think this is kind of how he started as well. Like this offensive whiz kid kind of role. And I think Ben's thinking is like, hey, I know before in Detroit, Dan Campbell, culture guy. He was the walk around guy, right? He's the guy that's going to rah-rah everybody up. I can just focus on X's and O's and be the play caller. I think he understands he's not going to be able to do that as the head coach of the Bears. He'll still call the plays, but he's not going to have time to really do all the X's and O's and do the playbook installs, draw up plays, figure out defensive weaknesses, all of that stuff while also trying to be the head coach.
Yeah.
And so everything you hear about Declan Doyle is this guy's like a film rat. And, I think he's going to be tasked with analyzing game film of the opponents to say, hey, these guys run a lot of man coverage. These guys run a lot of cover too. Their linebackers are slow. We can utilize the middle of the field. Or they've got one really good corner, one really bad corner. Here's some plays that I think might work. And I think he's going to work really well with Caleb, because he's kind of a science nerd in that sense of like dissecting plays, drawing stuff up. And then Ben will obviously be able to call those plays on game day. So I think Ben did this by design. And like we talked about too, he's 28. He's super young. Even if he has a good 2 seasons, a 30-year-old head coach, people might be a little young for that still too. So I think, if he does well, I think he could be here for a couple of years, which I think is part of the plan.
Yeah, young, but been in the 10 years coaching, like been around the block. I mean, the two things that I've been getting from his role on the Bears is what you said, that like some article called him like the COO, but just kind of like the everything guy for Ben Johnson, basically his eyes and ears and like a trust. Like in his presser, he seemed like he pretty much understood like Ben's trust me with a lot of shit, and so I need to like do things to have him, maintain that trust with him. And then the other thing is the some ways, like I guess a quarterback whisperer for Caleb. Like he had like one of his roles was to help Bo Nix not get sacked all the time.
Yeah.
And that was obviously like a big problem.
Bo only got sacked 20 something times. It was like 4th lowest in the league or something like that.
Yeah.
Conversely, Caleb 3 times as many times he got sacked. That's wild, right? Even with the porous offensive line, Denver's is probably maybe upper third. I don't think they're like top 5 or anything. And he did a good job of scripting things where Bo had room to escape or room to throw it away or extra protection. And like, Bo's not a big guy either. He can't take hits. So I think that I'm excited about that, of like him helping Caleb use his legs to avoid getting absolutely destroyed.
Yeah. And I guess getting rid of the ball, holding it on too long, not holding it on long enough, holding it long enough, like all of those things. And, it's like, as I read it, I was like, so it's not as simple as just like, hey, don't get sacked. There's obviously like an art and a science and a knowledge and a vision. And I think that's like kind of the like early feelings that I'm kind of getting from this is like, you have this, like these people who have a vision who can lead you. He said in his presser, like, we're not going to be on the field taking any place. And so it's like, we have to kind of put them in positions to be able to see and hear the things that we want them to see and hear. But like, yeah, there just seems to be this understanding that Declan Doyle kept referring to himself as like a teacher, like which is a cool, like interesting, understanding that one would have about their role with these students, I guess.
And you mentioned teacher, and Declan, he's been to the Senior Bowl a number of times. That was kind of before he went to Denver, when he was with Sean Payton in New Orleans, that was one of his roles, was to go to the Senior Bowl and do some scouting and teach some of these younger guys. I mean, he's a younger guy than himself. It sounds weird saying that.
Yeah.
But I think Ben will lean on him actually a little bit in the draft process too, to like evaluate certain players. I'm interested in to see Ben and Poles' direction they go in with free agency in the draft. You know, so far it looks good, but you know, if they do something crazy, you know, like don't address the offensive line and draft Ashton Jeanty at number 10, you're going to be like, oh, it's just the same crap with people wearing, you know, different people wearing the Bears logo, but once you put the Bears logo on, you just become stupid.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see if they actually do it the correct way. And Ben's like, nope, you got to spend big money on Trey Smith or Drew Dahlman or draft, you know, Tyler Booker or Will Campbell or Kevin Bay, whoever's available at 10 to like, I need good offensive linemen, you know, because this running back class is very deep in this draft. You don't have to take one at 10. In fact, you probably shouldn't, where you can like find, you know, your David Montgomery, you know, type player in the later rounds. Because if you're trying to use direct comps, right? Ben Johnson had Montgomery and Gibbs, like this boom and zoom, Sonic and Knuckles, Thunder and Lightning, whatever you want to call it. You know, we've got Swift, who they tried to use as both, you know, the
boom and the zoom.
Boom and the zoom. And he's not a boom.
Yeah.
He's a zoom.
And we knew that, right? Going
Yeah.
in, like, there was a known thing that he was not a boom. He was the zoom guy and successfully and good as the zoom.
Yep.
And we kept using him as a boom.
Yeah, we used him as both, right? Yeah. And I don't know why. You probably have to ask Shane Waldron, but he might still be in Cancun or something. Actually, you know what? I thought I heard he got a job with the Jaguars. I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, yeah, I don't know why they didn't utilize Roshan more. I know he was hurt a little bit, but they're going to need another back and another good back. And I think like Caleb Johnson out of Iowa is a guy to keep an eye on. He's kind of that boom. He's got good vision. That's like a main trait of his that I think scouts really like. And I think vision is something that might have been lacking with Swift at times. So I don't think you necessarily, bottom line, I don't think you necessarily need to spend a pick on Ashton Jeanty, who's probably a first rounder. You have to address the trenches, whether it's offensive line or defensive line, because they need to get better on both of those sides. So I'm very interested to see how they address that.
Yeah, and I guess depending on who they sign on the offensive line or defensive line, that would change your feeling on them drafting this man whose name I'm hearing for the first time today.
Ashton Jeanty?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a running back out of Boise State. He had an unbelievable season. He's got great balance, power, all that stuff. You know, they're calling him like, you know, Ezekiel Elliott, or, you know, he's not as shifty as Bijan.
He
but
wears
like
little shirts like Ezekiel Elliott does, showing off his abs.
He probably does. Yeah. He probably does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's kind of a hot prospect. He was a Heisman finalist with Travis Hunter. But, yeah, I don't think you need, just because the position's so deep. Now, there has been like a running back resurgence, right? We've seen Saquon go nuts. Derrick Henry went nuts.
Yeah.
What else am I thinking? Josh Jacobs had a great year. And you're just like, man, the running backs, they carried their teams a lot this year. So the Bears need to be able to rely on that, especially with a young quarterback. You want to have a good running game, but you can't have a good running game without a good offensive line. So, and the Bears likely need to replace 3 starters, maybe 4. Braxton, like, remember he broke his ankle like the last game of the season. Yeah. And so still not really sure what his recovery timetable is. I guess he'll be good for the beginning of the season, but you don't know, right, how that's going to recover, how it's going to heal. You might need 4 positions on the offensive line that need upgrading. So you need to take a lot of swings there. You need to sign people. You need to draft people. It needs to be better than it was last year.
If they just, like, how many picks do they have in this draft? Do you know?
I think they got 6. So they have a first, 2 seconds, a third, a fourth, and then a 5th and a 6th, I think. And maybe they have like 6 or 7.
So, like, how many of those picks would you like to see be linemen, like offensive and defensive?
That's hard to say. I think the first 3 should be.
Yeah.
They have,
either side of the ball?
Yes, they have 3 picks in the top, 40-something. I think they should be linemen. Honestly,
plus or minus if they sign people in the before then, that would change.
Well, maybe even then I'd be like, yeah, I'm okay with it, or like 2 linemen if Caleb Johnson's there, maybe him, something like that.
Well, it really just does seem like those are prime. Like if they drafted anyone, especially in that first pick, like anyone that wasn't on one of those two lines, it seems like we're not moving in the direction that we kind of need them to.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So the Bears have, let me see. So they have, the 10th pick, then 2 second-round picks, a third, a fifth, a sixth, and 2 sevenths. So now if Ian Cunningham leaves, he's still like, I don't know if he's contemplating this Jaguars job. I thought he was out on it, but now they're saying, he's still a finalist. If he leaves for whatever reason, they'll get 2 third-round picks, 2 third-round compensatory picks, which is not nothing.
Yeah.
So now if you have first, 2 seconds, 3 thirds, I mean, that is crazy draft capital.
Yeah.
To address. And the sweet spot for guards is usually that second and third round is the sweet spot for offensive guards. And you need 2 of them. So it's a great spot to get one. And you might even, if you get those picks, you might even be able to take a defensive end, right, at 10, one that you like that could be a reach, like Nick Scouten from Texas A&M. People have him going right around there, maybe a little bit later. I think he could be going James Pierce from Tennessee. There's a couple others. There's a kid from Georgia. I forgot his name, Michael Williams or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of good defensive line depth.
I would be given, when we were watching Hard Knocks last year, I was like, man, this team really knows how to speak to their players. And so now I'm about to, now we're in the same place of these people seem competent. I say that to say, kind of based on everything we've seen, it seems like probably they're going to make the obvious choice and focus on, it seems hard to believe based on, I guess little information, but kind of everything we've gotten so far that they're we're moving in. It would seem like if they didn't do that, then it would seem like we're out of the direction we've been.
Exactly. It'll be like the same old Bears.
Yeah, which thing. It doesn't, based on, because I think I told you this last time, but watching them so deeply this year and learning about the chaos and in some of the sort of organizational history and this, and getting to watch this now, sort of what seems contrastly, it's completely different. And so if they were to not either sign and also draft people that they need, it seems insane, given that they're basically they have said they're building it around Caleb and they're building it around the personnel, and they're and so you got to so it just seems crazy that
what would be the same old Bears move is if they traded for Myles Garrett. They did that with Khalil Mack.
Yeah. When
Ryan Pace was there, and you're like, oh, I didn't think we were one player away, but yeah, all right, we might make the playoffs now. And they traded 2 firsts and a third for Khalil Mack when they had Trubisky. And then after they drafted Trubisky, and you're like, okay, this could work. And then, they were always just okay. They made the playoffs that one year, but the double doink, and then they missed the playoffs, and then they made the playoffs and got smoked by the Saints, and you're just like, this team's not that great. Because they thought they were closer than they were. They weren't patient. And so I think if you see them trade for Myles Garrett and give up their seconds and their first and trade the draft capital for Myles Garrett and then sign him, and now all of a sudden, you don't have the cap space to go sign some of these other offensive linemen, you're doing patchwork again, then it's okay, same old Bears, they didn't get it.
Ah, interesting. Yeah. Huh.
So if they decide, look, if the value's there and they get them for a, first this year and a second next year, and you're like, okay, well, they still got their 2 second round picks and they still have enough money to sign. Okay, fine. But I don't think that's the case. I don't see how that would happen because he would cost a lot.
Yeah.
And now you're pulling yourself out of the Trey Smith sweepstakes because there's a lot of teams that are going to want Trey Smith. The Bears aren't the only ones that are this guy's pretty good. Everybody knows he's pretty good, right?
That's the hard part about pretty good people. Everybody knows they're
good. Are you just going to overpay for them, or what are you going to do? Washington they have cap space and they have a dynamic young quarterback and they just made the playoffs. Don't you think they want to upgrade their offensive line? You're going to have to outbid for this guy. And now if you've hamstrung yourself to another pass rusher that's 30 years old, you're doing the same thing you did with Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
When you could just sign Khalil Mack because he's a free agent. So just do that instead,
Okay. So as we close out today's episode, any final Declan thoughts, coaching thoughts, or just any kind of directional Bears thoughts?
No, I think what you're seeing is good. I think what you're seeing is calculated, and I think calculated's a good word to describe Ben Johnson. Everything I've heard him say, read, or any interviews that he's given, he's very calculated. I think he says things with purpose. I think he understands his role. I think he understands where the team is. I'm looking forward to free agency in the draft to validate those things, and be like, yeah, this guy kind of gets it. But like I said, it could still go off the rails if they don't do the obvious things. It's staring them in the face, like what they need to do and what they need to spend money on and how to make this team successful. Now, whether they do it, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see how they handle the rest of the offseason.
Yeah. Hell yeah. For Samir Patel, I'm Chirag Rathod. We're the Bears in the neighborhood. And Declan, we're sorry for your face. We'll catch y'all next week.
Peace out, Saskatchewan.